about viewing the political spectrum as a circle between stable individualism at the top and unstable collectivism stable individualism at the bottom and unstable collectivism at the top. It seems like the best succinct explanation of most of what I care about politically. He goes on to explain human society as circles versus hierarchies. Have you seen the political circle model before? No, I've never come across. I think it might be his. I'm not slamming him. It might be his own creation, and he's right. His observation is correct. Although other people have pointed it out in different ways, but I think he's the one to just tie it into a circle, which I think is convenient. Have you seen this before? How much you want to watch the video and comment? So he provided the comment. He provided the link below. I have the link to Uncivilized Vitality's video there below if you guys would like to watch it. But what I'll do is let me go back to the original question so I don't forget. I said, yeah, great. Okay, I just want to make sure I have his question. Anyway, all right, so I'll summarize the video for you, give you my 2 cents. Basically, what the guy was pointing out is that traditionally we look at politics in a linear spectrum, a left and right. And at the extreme on one end is communism. At the other extreme is fascism. And not that I disagree with that spectrum existing, it does. I would say it's more a producer-parasite spectrum. And I would not say it's fascism on the other end for reasons you'll see why. I would say on one extreme is still communism, where there's no private property and you have parasites just trying to do as little as possible. And on the other extreme is anarchy, where there is no public ownership of anything. There is no government. I would say it's more of a spectrum of how much government, total communism, to zero, none at all. And that's probably more. And it doesn't perfectly align with producer-parasite, but for functional, practical purposes, it does. Because it's descriptive of the people who are like, if you're on the left, if you're a leftist, you're for parasitism. You may not be a parasite. You may work and support yourself, but you're for other people being parasites. If you're on the right, you're like, fuck off, leave me alone. And no, I don't want to give you any money. And then you're called a fascist. Anyway, and the main thesis, what this guy was saying, is what you should do is you take the line, and at the extreme ends, you just curve them up and have them connect at the top. Because whether you go fascism or whether you go communism, in both cases, it ends up being a dictatorship. The people are ignored. It's a cabal or an elite or an aristocracy at the top. The individual is sacrificed. So what he is saying is, I guess it would be not so much a circle, but I'd say another spectrum, maybe a vertical one, where the form of dictatorship, he calls it collectivist, which I'm inclined to agree, where the government, whatever form it takes, is collectivist, and that comes before the individual. And then on the other end, you have the individual. So a spectrum there could be the same. And what he did was neatly diagram and explain from yet another angle what I've pretty much said all the time. I'm like, I don't care if you're fascist or communist, because you're both the fucking same thing. And I don't even mean in a dictatorial sense or political sense, certainly that. But I was always fascinated with why there was so much hatred between Nazi or fascist Germany and communist Russia. And even to this day, how the communists, oh, the fascist. And the fascists like, oh, the communists, although you're not allowed to be fascist. Communism is cool, kids, yo. Even though they killed way more in peacetime, but they say nice things. And he had a nice mustache, so, okay, I want to be popular. Why is everyone dead? It was the Republicans in the Senate. Anyway, from my view of World War II, when you had these two going at each other, oh, geez, maybe we supply them both with weapons and you guys can kill each other, because both are despicable ideologies. But when you look at it's tyranny and dictatorship from a political standpoint at the end of the day, whether it's communism, fascism, I guess you could even say a monarchy. Oh, I upset some people. But from an economic standpoint, even, it's the same thing. Because if you want, I probably should have linked to it. I wrote an article in my blog, search Captain Capitalism, Were the Nazis Socialists? And it's a great piece of journalism, to be frank, a nice little piece of research. It didn't take that long. And the short answer is yes, the Nazis were socialists. They were, I don't know if they were full-blown Marxist communists, but if you look at Hitler and what the Nazi Party advocated in their fiscal policies and their social policies, they were not right-leaning economic. Maybe socially, hey, we don't like these guys, go kill them. Sure, that makes sense. But economically, yeah, they were leftists. Again, maybe not full-blown Marxists, but they were definitely leftists. And what complicated the analysis to find out, okay, were the Nazis socialists, is there was not enough peacetime for you to see what a fully implemented economic policy the Nazis would have had, because first you had Hitler come in and kind of stabilize things. And there was a fair amount of aims made towards achieving Nazi economic policy, and those were leftist socialist leaning, or wholly so. But Hitler was also he prioritized rearmament and rearming and military spending over the social spending. And so where at first you could kind of see some makings of what would be a social economic policy beginning to form, that is then masked and dwarfed by military spending and rearmament. And then the war kicks off, and they didn't have government paid daycare for all the single mommies in Deutschland. It was more like, hey, how much more concrete can we get? And oh wait, don't kill them, they can work. All right, keep them alive and then kill them later. So the conclusion I came up with is stated goals of Hitler Nazi economic policy was socialism, more or less. Maybe not full-blown Marxism, but then the war and the rearmament got in the way, and then it was just, you're a wartime economy at that point, and the analysis falls apart by then. But that's one thing I never understood. I'm like, why the fascists? Oh, Hitler. It's like, you all had the same economic policy pretty much. And even then, I would say Nazism, with the research I did do and how they spent it, that was very close to socialism, or the policies were socialistic in intention. But then you get to fascism, which now is just this term you throw around where somebody uses empiricism and data and insists that you work for a living and support yourself because they're fascists, obviously. And most people don't know what economically fascism would be. Still a dictatorship. But from an economic standpoint, if you're bored, what would most closely represent it now would be modern day China. China is not communist, it's fascist. And the best way to describe fascism, at least in economics, is that people are allowed private ownership, big quotes, but the government controls it. And you say, oh, well, there's private ownership, but the government controls it. Like, then I say, well, then the government owns it, doesn't it? Another angle to look at it, I think Trump lowered corporate taxes, but the U.S. had pretty high corporate taxes, something like 40% when you consider state and federal. That's in the literal sense, not the derogatory use of the word. That's very fascistic. That's very fascist, where the government is a default 40% stakeholder, shareholder in the company. Then you have rules and regulations that the government requires of companies, which now you're kind of in a gray area. If you let companies just do whatever they want, they will fuck the American people in the ass. Okay, so you need regulations. Is that fascist? We tell, hey, you can't dump the chemicals in the pond. In the purest of sense, yes, but it's also just laws and things that you need. But when it comes to, hey, you better put a black lesbian in all your movies through ESG, that's fascist. More so back in the day, the government would say, okay, you can go make your, I don't know, you do your own analysis. You figure it all out, and China would be, okay, you make as many apartment buildings as you want. You go create your companies and do your business. But we're the CCP. Maybe we're just going to take it over. Oh, we don't like what you did there. Do it this way or else. Or we'll just take your stuff wholly. And that is where the government controls it. Oh, that's cute. Oh, look, they got shit. Oh, look, that corporation issued shares. Isn't that cute? The people are giving the money to the shareholder. You don't think the Chinese government could just come into, what was it, Everglade, Everclear, Evergreen, Ever Happy, whatever the one. You don't think they just come in there like, yeah, we'll take that. Like, yeah, you're going to do what we tell you to do. That's where the government has control, and in some cases, outright or partial ownership. They can renationalize uh, um, an industry. Like if you go back in the day, especially in Europe, banks and airlines and telecommunications were nationalized and owned by the government. Then they were privatized. And you just kind of have, no, we're going to set price controls. You can't charge the people that much, or you're going to charge them more. And I think back in the day, even governments kind of like, yeah, we're not good at this whole running a business, but we're going to give you the facade you run the business. We're going to take 40% of your profits. But it's like the mafia. We'll leave you the fuck alone. You just pay us the protection money. Oh, we don't like what you did there. Be a shame if we took your factories or whatever else like that. And so in the end, there's this, it's not where the government owns it and runs it, but the government kind of controls it, which I would argue is an effective form of ownership behind the scenes, or partially owns it. And depending on the amount of, how many inches it shoves its dick into corporations' ass, which sometimes I'm not against. So it's like, yeah, you corporations are dicks too. Are you a full-blown Italian fascist dictatorship where you tell the industry you're going to make this many cars and this many things, and okay, fine, you keep your lira? It's this veneer of ownership. And I think even that, and you say, well, they'd see through that. No, you'd be surprised, because China, once they allowed for private ownership or leasing, their economy boomed. And people are like, oh my God, we're going to work. But at the end of the day, the government could just say, yeah, that's ours. Or thank you for your corporate taxes. Or they could get really controlling, like a communist government would again, and start barking orders like, how many loaves of bread you're going to make, and you're going to set the prices and all that other kind of stuff. So it's not like this clear-cut kind of thing. But fascism is just like communism that just got a little bit of intelligence and did a magic trick on the stupid people. Like, oh, we own this. Okay. I'll work a lot and I'll pay you 40% taxes. And then with dividend taxes, it's more. You got income tax. Oh my God, you people believe you're working hard. It's all your money. But yeah, the DNA between communism and fascism, both in terms of the political dictatorship and then even the economics, is pretty identical. I mean, it's not exactly one for one, but it's pretty much identical. And that's what that guy pointed out. Whether it's the government running things and it owns it, or it's the government telling corporations owning things, but the government telling it what to do, you're still answered to some form of a cabal or a cartel or a dictator. And although it is fascinating how fascism has higher economic growth, like China went from, look up Deng Xiaoping, you can look it up, and like went from just a shithole of a country to, it's solid second world, but there's no denying there was some significant economic growth, corrupt as may have been. But yeah, end of the day, it's the same thing. You have, the government controls you and will tell you what to do. Oh my God, but it's the Democrats. All right, let's go to the super chats. Do we have any? Let me scroll up. Come on, Clary. No super chats. There we go. Wait, did I? Come on, there. All right. Oh, there it is. Darn it. Mark Magania, $5. Quit thoughts on Rumble. Started uploading there. Yeah, that's probably going to be my place. A friend of mine was telling me that Rumble allows you to multicast to different platforms, whereas it's somewhat difficult on other platforms and streams. And the day, whenever, if YouTube decides to demonetize me or take the channel away, I will be going to Rumble and doing the multicast and the multi-stream deal. Although I guess with Fresh and Fit, they were simply demonetized. Their channel was not taken down, which then confused me because they still get super chats, but through a third party now, and YouTube just lost out on all their super chats. I don't claim that wise businessmen and women are in charge of YouTube as of yet. And who knows, maybe they just don't care about YouTube because it's not their main thing. But yeah, Rumble, fine. And let me know how it goes, Mark. Ease of use, logic, streaming. Dre, $2. What is difference between hiking and walking far? Like I said, I think hiking involves you're not on a sidewalk. There's also an elevation gain up or down. You're out in the wilderness when you're hiking, and there's usually a destination when you hike. A walk, that's like the treadmill. You're just walking to get your exercise. You're not like, I'm going to a destination. There's an adventuring aspect with hiking. Walking is a chore. Unless you're doing it for meditative purposes like Arthur Schopenhauer and you would just walk through the woods. Although in the fact that you're in the woods, that might qualify it as hiking. All right, that's it. Link below. What is it? What do I have linked below? Enjoy the Decline, I think. And then a link to that video if you guys were interested in watching it. We'll see you guys later. Toodles.